Hey folks, welcome back to the Digital Imaging channel. I'm Will, and today we're going to be talking about how artificial intelligence can be used with digital scanning and conversion. Now, we've got a special video for you because instead of just me talking to the camera, we're going to be doing what we're calling the expert interview, where I bring in one of my colleagues who is the expert on the topic that we're going over today. And today's topic is artificial intelligence and how it's used with digital imaging, scanning, and conversion. So I'm going to be interviewing our VP of Software Development, Brad Gilbert.
My name is Brad Gilbert, VP of Software. Well, I would first describe really what we do at BMI, and that is combining machines and qualified staff to produce favorable outcomes through processing projects. AI just adds an additional component of automation for things that we haven't been able to previously automate. Artificial intelligence is just another tool that we use within our systems to provide for automation, for detection of objects, image classification. That combined with efforts of humans and machines produce more favorable outcomes for our systems. From the technical perspective, you start to think about the bigger picture concepts, and the buyer doesn't necessarily what does that mean to me? Yeah, I think the breakthrough moment was discovering on Stack Overflow a post that was solving a particular problem that I had in a completely different way. And what was groundbreaking about that was the approach was completely different than anything I've seen before. And really that solution solved multiple problems simultaneously. So it was that moment that I knew that I needed to do some more research into this and figure out how it worked. And since then, we've leveraged it in numerous different ways. Well, it was related to image classification, really the aspect of forms recognition detection. So prior to that, what you needed to do was to discover every single possible example of all the forms, where artificial intelligence, machine learning allow you to provide this generalization so that it can actually detect the conditions that you didn't actually foresee before you started the project or before you tried to solve the problem. It was a simpler approach. It was less code. If you tried to solve the same problem without machine learning, you might have thousands of lines of code to detect every condition that you might ever run across. In the case of machine learning, it does more generalization. So instead of programming to solve the problem, what we do instead is train a model to solve it for us based on training data that we've provided the model. The first project we used AI on was to detect image information and provide classification. That classification of the images that we detected allowed us to then choose between one image or another image automatically. I think when deciding to use AI or not really comes down to how do you handle the exceptions? How do you handle the outcomes that are not 100%? Because it isn't fully automatic at 100% accuracy, you have to develop systems and processes to mitigate the exceptions. Yeah, there's still additional components to solving the problem because with machine learning, you're able to detect circumstances automatically. But because it's not 100%, you need to develop a multi-layered approach of human interaction as well as additional software tools to provide QC or even additional machine learning algorithms to sort of check the original result to make sure it's accurate. This is important to do efficiently. Otherwise, you sort of remove the benefit of adding the automation in the first place. For example, when mitigating exceptions, you could have a detection algorithm that has to detect objects on an image. In that case of not being able to be 100% accurate, you're going to miss some of those objects. So what is the important thing to think about then? And if you miss one, is that okay? If you miss 5, is that okay? Does it have to find all of them? And if you were to not find all of them, what are the ramifications of that? So usually it's programming additional processes to review the results to make sure that they're accurate in the most efficient way possible. I think they get AI and software wrong when they think it's going to be 100%, is that they think it's going to be completely automatic. And that you give the system the problem and the result is automatically calculated and you leave it alone and there's nothing you need to oversee or manage or configure. And that is completely incorrect. And that goes back to the exception mitigation, as well as harvesting more training data automatically, because the models that you train initially are smart at identifying the first problem you identified, but as additional problems start to surface, your models need to improve over time to get better equipped at handling those outside circumstances. That goes back to the multi-layered approach that's needed to confirm your assumptions that everything is working correctly, as well as use additional processes to harvest more training data so you can continue to improve the system over time. Yeah, sometimes the perception could be that it's less expensive when you're implementing AI. The problem is that they usually don't foresee the upfront setup costs. It's related to setting up a correctly trained model to solve the problem. That takes a lot longer than typical software implementations. Yeah, an example of a training model when using AI would be, let's say you want to detect apples within photographs. You would have to collect thousands of images that some of them would have apples, and you'd have to have somebody actually identify by hand every single apple in every single image. As you can imagine, that's very time consuming. And if you wanted to solve a problem that only had 1,000 images in it, you wouldn't bother training a machine learning algorithm. But if you wanted to solve a problem that had 10 million images in it, then that would be the perfect tool. I would say that we're using artificial intelligence on about 50% of our projects. We use it in every scenario. So our business is to convert information, and so it doesn't really matter where that information came from. Once it's converted into a computer, then we can use artificial intelligence to process it in the way that we need to, classify it in the way we need to, eliminate manual work if we need to. All of that is available once you digitize the image. When we implement machine learning, usually it's used to augment what a trained staff member is doing already. And so all we're doing then is taking an aspect of their job that was difficult and time consuming and making it more efficient and faster. But the expert who understands the correct result still needs to supervise and participate in that effort. When it comes to digitizing records, it all comes down to a couple of core concepts, and that is image classification, object detection, map and reduce scenarios. So AI is very good in various ways to use in those scenarios. And so the more that we start to understand how to leverage it, the more it will be used. The reason to use AI will only increase over time as more of those patterns start to develop. Let me think. Did you change the order?
Sort of.
Did you change the
No, the order of the questions. Is there anything else you want to add about AI?
No.
Okay. We hope you enjoyed that video. I had a great time interviewing Brad. We're very thankful he came on here and participated in this. We hope you came away with something from it because he did give us a bit of an inside scoop on AI and digital imaging. Remember, subscribe to our channel to keep seeing videos like this, and we'll see you next time.